Hi.
Hello.
Hey. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'll be helping you with any like technical difficulties if they arise during your workshop today.
How's it been going so far?
It's great, yeah. Um yeah, I've been up for a bit just attending
I
all.
can imagine.
Yeah, they've been really fun so far. Yeah, I'm really excited for your talk about leadership. If I
Thank
were
you.
I would like attend it on my own anyway, so like I'm happy to be here moderating.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a Slido at the start. I'll share my screen and everything, and then depending on how many people show up, we'll either do breakout rooms. I came up with like case studies that we could dissect, and we'll either do breakout rooms or we'll do it just as a group because I didn't know how many people were gonna come, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay, cool.
How's the engagement been at other workshops and stuff?
So today we're averaging around like 30, 40 people at each workshop. So hopefully same here. Hopefully we get a little bit more too.
That makes sense. I know it's day 3 now of the hackathon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't done a 3-day one before, but I feel like the 2-day one, I'm exhausted by day 2. So I understand that people would be super tired.
True, yeah. Yeah, I've just been like managing the events like during the hackathon, and I completely forgot that like hackers also have to code an entire project.
Yeah,
So yeah, that is a lot to do within a weekend.
that's always been, I think, even for me, when I go to hackathons, it's like, dude, all the workshops always sound so great, but it's like, when am I actually going to create my projects?
Yeah, that's facts.
If at any point, like the slides, like you can't see stuff or whatever, just let me know, or if the volume is off, um, just interrupt. Hey, Jennifer, when we start, do you want me to just start right away, or is there anything that you have to say or do at the beginning?
So yeah, I guess I just like to point out the Discord for any questions any participants might have. So if you guys have like questions during the workshop, feel free to just type it in the Discord. We'll make sure to answer them. And also, I guess since this is like, I'm guessing an interactive workshop, do you think it might just be best for attendees to directly ask their question to you?
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking we could do. I'm not sure. I did make it interactive, but when I've done this in the past, like I haven't. Sometimes I won't get interaction, which is why like I have two versions, like an interactive and a non-interactive. So I'll ask everyone if they're comfortable with doing the interactive part. Otherwise, we can just use the Discord and go from there.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, just feel free to start whenever
Yeah,
you want.
cool. Yeah, so then I think we will get started. Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am so glad you could make it. I hope IvyHacks is going well for you so far. My name is Vaneezeh Siddiqui. I will do a better introduction in a bit, but before we get started, I wanted to use Slido just to get a feel of where everyone's at right now and how you're feeling and also what you're looking to get out of this workshop. So if everyone could hop onto Slido, the link is there. You just go slido.com and enter the code IvyHacks and I will pull it up on my screen as well. Okay, can everyone see the poll? Okay, awesome. So yeah, go ahead. Sleepy? Yeah, I imagine that one. I know it's day 3. Kudos to you guys for like making it to the workshop too. I know hackathons can be super draining and you're probably very caffeinated. Anyone else confused? Okay, I hope we can clear up some of that confusion during the workshop. I'll give it like a few more seconds. Excited. Yay, that's awesome. I'm very excited too. Cool. And so the next question is going to be, oh, I also saw uncertain. Sorry, I clicked, but okay. What are you hoping to get out of this workshop? I know there was a description that was put out, but if there's anything in particular, this will just kind of help me guide the more interactive portion of the workshops. If there's anything you're looking to get, I'll leave this open for a minute. Feel free to put it into the Slido. Okay, nice. Confidence, for sure. Can definitely talk about that. Teamwork skills, definitely. That's something that's super important as a leader. How to lead when you don't know everything about everything. Yes, that one is a very interesting question. We'll definitely talk about that. How to create and develop meaningful student organizations, for sure. To learn how to be a better leader rather than a manager. I love that one. Okay, awesome. Thank you for participating. These are definitely things that we will be talking about, encouraging more involvement from peers. Cool. And we can talk about how to do that in a virtual environment as well, because I know the playing field is a little bit different now that we are not on campus. Executing an ideal world, motivating a group. Awesome. We'll talk about vision and buy-in and creativity and innovation with your organization for sure. These are great. Awesome. I will move into our presentation. If at any point you have questions, you can stop me or save your questions for the end. But we will get started. Okay, cool. So my name, like I said, is Vaneezeh. I am a third-year student at the University of Toronto. I'm doing a major in statistics and double minors in computer science and business. I really enjoy leadership. I have for a large chunk of my life, but over the past few years, I've been doing a lot more of it at a larger scale. And it's something I really love to talk about. I know I want to do it in my future career. And I'm really excited to be here and to share what I've learned so far with you and learn from you as well. The primary, I guess, experience that I'm going to be using that is the basis of this talk is my work launching the Women in Science and Computing team on campus. I launched that last year and I have grown it pretty quickly and have learned a lot just from mentors and from the experience overall. And that is primary, like what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And then just because I love when speakers give a fun fact about themselves, I am a huge dance fitness enthusiast. I know quarantine's made it pretty hard to have that same environment, but like Zumba, hip hop, anything like that, that's what makes me happy. But yeah. So debugging leadership. In this workshop, we are going to talk about everything from building your team to launching your organization. And then when you're ready, scaling your organization, talking about things like how do you find people to back your work? How do you build a team that is strong and like fully believes in your vision? And I'm hoping that after the workshop, you leave with a few tangible tips to take back and also get the chance to ask your questions and work through some of the problems that you might be facing right now. I broke down the leadership lessons that I learned into the 3 stages of building an organization, or like a very rundown version of it: launching, leading, and scaling. And so under each of them, I'll give you 2 key takeaways, and then we're going to move into an interactive portion. I'm not sure how open everyone will be, but I will touch base with everyone once we get to that stage. And then I have created a series of mini case studies based on challenges that I have faced as a leader. And I'm hoping that we can work through some of those together. I can share my strategies and you all can share yours as well. So that's where we're headed for the next little while. Okay, so how did I get to this point? When I started university in 2018, I was in the math, stats, and CS stream, and I'd heard a lot about how challenging it was going to be and how I should be prepared for a very long 4 years. And obviously, that didn't inspire the most confidence in me, but I was pretty hopeful. I was excited, as most freshmen are. And first year turned out to be pretty rough. It was definitely a roller coaster. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. And there were so many points along the journey where I was questioning whether or not this was the right career path for me. I was feeling a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of doubt, and I was struggling to find people that shared that or were willing to talk about it. And it was through conversations with closer friends that I realized that I wasn't experiencing this in isolation. But I wondered why we didn't have a group or a space for students to talk about this experience, to talk about what diversity and inclusion in STEM really means, especially because a lot of schools have that set up. And so the August before I started my sophomore year, I decided that if the space didn't exist, I was going to create it. And that's what I did. We were 4 execs when we started. We are now a team of 17 execs. We grew our membership from 50 when we started to over 300 general members. We were featured in campus publications, received department funding, and we're at that stage where we're continuing to scale. And so those are some of the, I guess, the highlights, but I'll also be talking about some of the lowlights because we know that it's not all happy stuff all the time. Okay, so the first stage of the process that I'll talk about is the launching stage. There's a ton that goes into this step, but I'll give you 2 key takeaways and I will focus on the team building portion, just because I really believe that without a strong team, it's hard to bring your vision to life. You can't play all the roles and you can't wear all the hats all the time. And I think that the team building phase is one of the fundamental parts of making sure that your organization is successful as a whole. So the 2 things that I'm going to say under this point. The first one, when you're recruiting for a dynamic cross-functional team, you want to hire people that are better than you at something. And the reason why I think this one is so important is because I struggled with it a lot at first. I thought that if there were gaps, I would be able to fill them myself. I am a little bit of a perfectionist, and I have that mentality of like, okay, if it needs to get done, I will just do it. And I was very quickly feeling the burnout from that. And that's when I realized like, I can't be the best at everything. I am not going to be the best graphic designer and the best like finance person and whatever else you or whoever else you have on your team. And so as a leader, you have to be able to put your ego aside and say, okay, who are the best people that I can bring to fill these roles? It may not be like your closest friends or people you know, but you have to understand that if you don't hire people that are better than you at those things, you'll kind of feel like you have to step into those roles and you are going to drop the ball somewhere. And so make sure that when you're recruiting your team, you're going out there, you're curating, you're finding people that are really good at what they do, and then you're bringing them into your organization. Now, once you find those people, how do you create the buy-in to get them to fully contribute and feel like they are a part of your team? The reason why I think buy-in is so important is because it's often not you as the leader who is the one that is doing the executing. You have 10 different people who are all playing a role in making this project come to life. And it's important that along the process, everyone feels like they are a part of the vision, like they are contributing, and that they have ownership with the project that you're working on. Because we all know as well, like if you don't feel fully bought into what you're doing, it's really hard to find the passion and the motivation when things get rough to push through. So with our team, what we do at the start of the year when we've recruited and we've assembled is a group design thinking session. So I will walk you through how I run it on my team. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways that people do it. This has kind of been this is based on how like I learned it from like internships and how people do it in industry, but I know everyone has like their own style. One thing that I like to do at the start is doing a design thinking how might we session. So what we do is everyone kind of has a piece of paper in front of them. It's called a Crazy 8 design session. And you break up this piece of paper into 8 boxes. And you're answering a series of how might we questions. And these how might we questions are based on our experiences, things that we felt were missing when we were students or things that we want this club to do. So I can give you a couple of examples. How might we support incoming first years in computer science? How might we become an incubator for female-driven innovation? Those are the types of questions that I put forth to the team. And then we do our Crazy 8 design session, where basically every minute you have to come up with a new idea and you have to draw it in the little box on your paper. The reason why I like this and not just putting it into a brainstorming board right away is because you have that time constraint. It forces you to get creative. When you know that you have a minute to come up with an idea, like once you hit the 4th idea, you're realizing you're recycling a lot of things. And this strategy I found is really useful in getting you to think a little bit outside the box. It's also just a different way to express yourself, and it often breaks a couple of barriers as well because people are having fun with it, they're drawing, they're sharing their drawings, and it kind of sets the tone for the rest of your brainstorming session. The next thing that you're going to do is transfer those, or what we do, I guess, is transfer them over to a Miro board. If you haven't used Miro, it's a pretty great visual brainstorming tool that you can use, and everyone puts their ideas on there. Then we leave it for the week or for that meeting, and we give it a week and we just say, okay, if you have any more ideas, feel free to throw them on. People often find that like when they look at other ideas, other people's ideas, they're inspired to come up with their own. And then at our next meeting, we do an OKR session. So if you don't know what OKRs are, they're objectives and key results. So what we end up doing is everyone shares their ideas, whatever they have written down, and then we go back to those ideas and we figure out what is the objective that this is trying to solve. So say someone put down partner with X company, right? We link that back to an objective. What is the problem that we're trying to solve by executing on this event? It's to provide our students with career opportunities or whatever it might be. And having this breakdown has allowed us to really hone in on what problems we're trying to solve as a team. And it also makes it really clear to whenever like we're pitching to departments for funding or we're trying to make a case for something, it makes it clear exactly what problems we're trying to solve and the ways that we have approached the problem. And so I can actually show you, this is what it ended up looking like after we had done our OKRs. We had the how might we questions at the top, and then everyone had taken a prong of the brainstorming board and they filled in their information. This is, like, I'm going to preface it by saying just one strategy, but it's something that has worked for us in order to just break down the barriers between people, have people kind of contributing their ideas, and also see their ideas come to life. So that goes under the first stage, the launching stage of your organization. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk about the leading phase. So you have your team, you have your vision, you have buy-in. How are you going to build leadership capability amongst your team? So I'll be honest, the first time leading a team this large was definitely very daunting. I didn't know how I was going to be able to connect with everybody and make sure that everyone had a great experience. And you want to make sure that you are building a strong culture because that's also how you attract new talent for the years to come. And a lot of our executives were stepping into leadership roles for the first time. And I wanted to make sure that they felt that they were supported throughout the process and that they weren't alone when they had people to manage as well, because it was their first time doing so. So the two things I'm going to say under this, as a leader, you are an enabler. You help people find what they're good at, and then you give them opportunities to do those things. You want to make sure that the people on your team feel like they are getting value out of this experience. It is as much, this organization is getting value from them as much as they should be getting value from it. So something that we do at the start of the year, I'll sit down with everybody and I have a one-on-one and I ask them, what are you looking to get out of this term? What are personal and professional development goals that you have for yourself? What does success look like for you at the end of this year? And through having that discussion, I'm better able to understand A, why they chose the role that they did, and B, whether or not they're willing to put in the effort to actually activate on those goals and make that happen. And if I know that they're willing to do so, I am more likely to invest in their growth and then provide them opportunities. So, as an example, if I sit down with a team member and I find out that they're really looking to build their public speaking skills, but that's not something that fits into their job portfolio at the moment. Knowing that they want to learn how to do that, I'm then able to find them opportunities to do so within the team, whether that be having them partner on an event and do the introductions or reach out to the corporate partners, whatever it might be. Giving them the chance to build on those skills that they're hoping to build shows that you are just as invested in their growth, and it creates that trust between you and your team as well. You want to make sure everyone's getting exposure and the ability to learn while they are a part of the organization, and you're going to find that the quality of work just becomes that much better. The next piece I'm going to say is you are helping your team grow, but you want to make sure that you're not just letting them go on their own and feeling incredibly overwhelmed, because we know that it can be overwhelming when you're just tossed a problem and asked to figure out how to do it. One of my mentors described it to me as you give them the start and the end, and then you let your team figure out the middle. But in order to do so, and in order to make sure that the quality still stays high, you want to give them an example of what good looks like. So what I did at the start of the year was break down exactly what goes into planning an event. What does a good retrospective look like? What is a sample event breakdown? Giving them access to these resources shows what good quality looks like, and it also sets a standard. And then it gives them room to go and say, okay, this part works for me, this part doesn't. I'm going to go make something else out of this. And giving that room for creativity is also super important because you don't want to box anyone into the one way of doing things. Okay. Then the final stage that I'm going to talk about is the scaling stage. So I felt like this is the part where I'm at right now in terms of leading our organization. We built a team, we built a foundation, we have a strong reputation. Now it's all about how much bigger can we make this. And after a first year wrapped up, I was really hungry for more. I now knew what we were capable of, and I was ready to take on the next big thing. And so what we did this year, we grew our exec team to pilot a few new projects. And the first step to scaling was realizing that we needed more hands on deck. It was something that I was worried about doing just because I didn't know whether or not I would be able to handle that many more people. But what we ended up doing was restructuring the org in order to have more people at the VP level. So instead of just myself being the person that was responsible for 17 people, it was me, and then we have a couple of VPs, and each of the VPs has a few people that they're responsible for, and that made it easier for us to expand. And the next lesson is perfection doesn't scale, and I felt like this was the hardest one for me to swallow as both a leader and as someone who is a perfectionist in most aspects of my life. It was just understanding that not everything is going to go 100% all the time, and I have to be okay with that. I found myself feeling very exhausted trying to make sure that everything was running on point all the time. And I was finding it hard to let go and give people the opportunity to thrive. And that was bad leadership on my part, because then when I graduate or move on or whatever, it's the organization may or may not fall apart if I have not created like a strong foundation and have given people the ability to learn how to lead and do it confidently. And so one thing that I realized is that my role had moved from a change initiation role to a change management role. And what I mean by that is when you start an organization, it's very much you're just running around, you're putting out fires as they come up. There's a whole bunch of roadblocks. There's a lot of red tape, especially at like the post-secondary level, trying to navigate funding and rules and whatever it might be. And so a lot of it was just like touch and go. I fixed a problem. Okay, something else came up, and we're just running between things. Now that we have a reputation and are a little bit more established and know how to navigate the waters, my role is much more of a change management role, and that I am able to give time to my team, sit with them, understand their goals, and also make sure that they feel 100% enabled and are ready to step into leadership roles and take on bigger challenges. When we first launched, I was leading a lot of the decision making, pushing forward initiatives, coming up with ideas. And as much as I wanted to sit down and get to know everybody at a more personal level, it just wasn't possible at that time. And now that we are a little bit more established, I'm able to sit down and say, okay, these are your goals. This is how they align with our organization's goals. Let's see how I can help you get to that next level. And I know that all the other things that we have to do as an organization are taken care of because we have people assigned to all those tasks. Okay, that was a lot. The last piece is going to be showing up authentically. I think as leaders, sometimes we forget that we have to, like, you set an example for the rest of your team, and you want the tone to be like you set the tone, right? If you show up to a meeting and you're tired and you're not engaged, like obviously that transfers over to your team as well. What I mean when I say show up authentically is to be open about what if you're struggling, if you need help, if it's going to take you a little bit longer to get back to somebody on something, be really open about it, right? If I'm having a really off day, like I'll just drop something in our happy hour, like Teams channel, and just say like, I'm super tired, midterms are killing me, or whatever it might be. And I'm just creating a space for my team to feel supported and like they are a part of a team, and they don't have to be professional all the time. We can have an easy conversation, it can be relaxed, and we also get work done. So that's just something to remember as well, is don't be afraid to be your authentic self when you're leading your team, because when you show up with authenticity, that inspires your team to do the same as well. And it really creates a space for open communication. All right, so to close off, I know, and I'm going to say this, it's everyone's journey as a leader is unique. Everyone has their own path to getting there and their own ways, I guess, of approaching different problems. But whether you're a team of 5 or 50, there are some things that I feel are important to remember at all points. The biggest one is create buy-in to the vision. I know we talked about this a bunch as to how to do that, but you want to make sure that along the journey, your team feels like they have ownership over parts of whatever you're working on. And that way you can ensure that everyone stays motivated and driven. And also, even when things get hard or it's midterm season or recruitment season or whatever it might be, people still feel like they're a part of this mission and they're willing to put in the time to help that vision come to life. The next thing is building leadership capability. Make sure that you are prioritizing your team. You are taking care of the people that are helping bring this vision to life, and know what people's goals are, because that way you're able to better support them as a leader and make sure that they walk away from this experience better than when they came in. And then the last piece, be your authentic self. Give yourself grace. It can get really tough at times. I'm guilty of not doing this, but I'm trying to get better at it. It's just learning that you can't be everywhere at once. It's okay to struggle as long as you are open and honest about it. And you bring your whole self to every conversation with your team. Okay, so that was a lot of me talking. I hope that you walked away from that with something new under whether it was launching, leading, scaling, whatever it might be. The next part of the workshop is going to be interactive if everyone is willing to contribute. So what I'm going to do is open the Slido again, and I just have a question about whether or not people feel comfortable having a discussion. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a quick second.
Oh, sorry to interject, but we do have a question on the Discord. Jennifer was wondering, what app/program did you use to make your OKR's vision board?
Yeah, we use Miro. I can drop, it's Miro. It's basically an online brainstorming tool. Everyone can hop on and collaborate onto it, and you can just create a whole bunch of different layouts. So I found that one that worked really well. Okay, I am going to share my screen and ask if everyone can fill or respond to the Slido. We will move to the next question. Okay, so how the breakout rooms, how I envision them working was I'd come up with a series of case studies based on my experience. And what I was going to do was ask if everyone could step into a breakout room, have a discussion for 5 minutes with your team about how you would approach the problem. And then as a group, we'd be able to give feedback. And also I can give some thoughts as to how I feel like I would approach the problem. So I'll give this, there are I think about 30 people on this call right now. So I'll give it like a minute. If you can vote whether or not you are comfortable doing that, that would be awesome. I'll give it about 30 more seconds. If you join late, you can just hop onto the slido.com, and that's the code, and you can vote as to whether or not you're open to contributing. Okay, I'm going to take that as a no, which is totally cool. I understand that everyone is probably super tired and also wants to work on the project. What I am going to do, and Jennifer, let me know what you think as well. I can share the case study doc. And then I was thinking, I don't want to talk about everything if people don't actually have an interest in it. So I can leave it open. And then if there's certain ones people want me to tackle, I can talk about how I would do it. And then we can just do Q&A.
Yeah, that sounds good. With
Okay.
me, that's with you.
Cool. All right, I will also drop a link to this in the chat. If you let me do that first so that everyone can. Okay. So what I did was create a series of case studies based on my experience and challenges that I faced. I'll actually share my screen as well because I know Zoom is sometimes finicky when it comes to copy pasting stuff from the chat.
I think the link is broken because there's no H.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, give me one sec. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so these are all problems or challenges that I've come across. Some of them because of COVID, and some of them just because they occur over the year. So I was thinking what we could do if any of these resonate with anybody or discussion that you want to have or have questions about, we can talk about them right now. And I will also open the floor to anyone else on this call who wants to share their experience or any thoughts that they have, because I don't want it to be just me talking at everybody. But so what I ended up doing was just what the overall topic is, and then a little blurb about it, and then the question that we'd be trying to answer. So there's some about managing team burnout, fostering growth, metrics for success, and then how to build a team bond virtually and get constructive criticism. So I'll give everybody a minute or two to just take a look at that and we can talk about it. If everyone has access to the doc, I'm going to stop sharing because I see things popping up in the chat. Okay. Cool beans. So there's a couple already. What I will do is I will just walk through them. And then if at any point anyone wants to ask a question or add their own experience, please feel free to do so. You can just unmute and talk. It's very casual. So don't worry about that. We will start with Kenny, who said number 6, criticism. Okay, cool. So here's my thoughts on getting constructive criticism. I have personally had issues with this just because I find that people are a little bit intimidated to give criticism because they feel, well, 2 reasons. They either feel like A, it's not useful because it's not going to get implemented, or B, they feel that I will be upset at them for giving criticism. And I think when I realized that this was the case, and how I realized it was the case actually was because I was putting out health checks with my team. So it was just like a Google form where I'd ask them how they felt about XYZ thing happening on our team. And I sent it out and I would get a very low response rate. And when I did get a response rate, a lot of people just put themselves as anonymous. And so that's when I realized, like, A, people were not engaging with it, but B, they also didn't feel comfortable for whatever reason. So that was a culture thing that I had to change first. So there's a couple things that I did in order to overcome this. The first one is I use my one-on-ones as a way to get to understand where my team is at and also figure out what sorts of issues they're facing. I found that that made it a little bit easier for people to feel like they were heard. So when I started the team, like at the start of the term, I sat with everybody and I asked them about their goals. And then when we started, that was back in May. And then in August, I met with everyone again and I asked them how they felt about the number of meetings we were having, about the approach to leadership, about the projects they were working on, about the changes that I had made based on our initial conversation. And I asked them very pointed questions. And I told them what I was going to ask them before I met with them one-on-one. So we didn't have that awkward, like, oh, I don't know how to answer this question type of thing. So that was one thing I did. The second thing that I did, and I continue to do this, is set a tone at the start of every meeting. I just remind everyone that this is a safe space. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to do so and bring them up. And what we also do is have retrospectives after every event. So we do this at a smaller scale amongst the smaller teams that are working on different projects. So for example, we have an entire branch of our team is just like dedicated to events under computer science. And so if they ran an event, they would have a retrospective within their team. And what I did was actually provide our leadership with a breakdown as to how to have a good retrospective, the ways that you can do it, and also the rules you should set at the start of your retrospective. And I found that because people were doing this in smaller groups and with teams that they had started to work with already, they became more comfortable with giving that constructive criticism because they realized that if they don't, like the problems that they were facing weren't actually going to get fixed at any point throughout the year. And then the last piece to this, I would say, is leading by example when it comes to taking criticism. So if I sit down with a team member one-on-one and they tell me that there's something that's bothering them, I will make sure to follow up with them, implement whatever the like change that they were looking for. And then I flag that at our meetings. I say, hey, through our one-on-ones, I heard that people felt, and this was like a real example, people felt like they were out of the loop with what was happening on the rest of the team because we were meeting bi-weekly. So I flagged that and I said, here's my solution. This is what I'm going to do. And now we just do like a weekly summary in our Teams channel. And people notice that. They see that you're taking their criticism and that you're doing something about it. And I found that that has helped break down that wall and make people more comfortable with giving criticism. And then if I myself want to give criticism to something that's happening on the team, or if like an event goes poorly and there's things that I want to say about it, I start the conversation by saying, here's what I think went wrong. This is what I'm trying to fix. Does anyone have any thoughts on how we can do it? This is one thought that I had, but I'm open to hearing what everyone else has to say. Like marketing team, how did you feel about XYZ thing? So those are a couple of things that I would do to handle constructive criticism. Let me know if that answers the question. If it doesn't, or you have follow-ups, I'm happy to revisit it. Cool. Jennifer says case 2 OMG. Okay, ooh, case 2, let me pull it up. Managing team burnout. Okay, this one, midterms, internship recruitment, general life stress picking up, your team is feeling burned out. How might you bring the energy level back up while keeping the collaborative team environment alive? Okay, this one is definitely one I'm feeling right now because midterm season has already started and I can see that balls are being dropped in certain places or there's some deadlines that are getting missed. Some people can't make it to every meeting. I understand that. And I understand also as student leaders, it can be frustrating because we also have those same deadlines and things that are on our plate. The two things that I would do. So the first one is understanding that although in your mind, it might seem that this is like a mission critical thing that has to get done, like this is not an operating table. No one is dying. And so if something has to be put to the side, and this is something one of my mentors told me, she literally said, you're not doing surgery, right? So if there needs to be something that has to be put on the back burner for a little while, and you notice that, you have to be the person to say, it's okay, we're going to put this on the back burner for just a bit because I'm realizing that people can't handle it. It's a little bit too much, right? But no one is going to hear it unless you as the leader acknowledge that it's happening and you say it straight up. The next thing is acknowledge and anticipate certain friction points. So what I mean by this is we know when internship recruitment season is happening, we know when midterms are coming. And from past experience, I'm able to understand that people are going to be a little bit less responsive to messages during those times and a little bit less willing to put in 110% to what the team is working on. And that's okay. But acknowledging that those friction points are coming and then kind of scheduling your team's events and the things that your team does around that, and also making sure that the rest of your leadership knows to anticipate that as well. So one thing that we do is a leadership roundtable. So they're scheduled around the times where there is going to be a lot of things happening. So like around midterm season, we'll have a leadership roundtable and all the leaders get together and we just talk about what challenges we're facing with getting things done with our teams, and then figure out how we can support each other or whether or not things have to get cut or reprioritized in order to meet those goals that we had. And then the last piece, this falls under the leading with authenticity portion. Understanding that because you are also a student and you're also experiencing all these things, being transparent about what you're going through is really important. Like yesterday, I had someone post in our team's channel saying like, I don't understand, like I'm really overwhelmed, and like midterms have just gotten so much harder because now they're virtual. And then I responded to that comment. I was like, you know what? I 100% feel you and I hear you, and I resonate with your struggle, right? And if I show up to a meeting and I'm really exhausted or having a bad day, I will say like, today has been really challenging, right? And being open about the fact that you are human and you understand that people are going through things and you yourself are going through things helps people feel more comfortable sharing with you what they're going through. And then you're able to either make those changes, reprioritize, and also just support your team in order to make sure that you're still maintaining the quality, while making sure that everyone is sane and like doing okay. I hope that answers the question, Jennifer, but if you have follow-ups, let me know. Okay, Olivia is asking for setting metrics for success in non-competitive environments. So this one, okay, metric setting is, I usually come back to the OKR model for this, just because, well, disclaimer, I want to be a PM at some point in my life, and I like OKRs. That's where I learned that from, and I'm just trying to like implement some of those things that I learned. And so the reason why I think it's important to set success metrics is because it sells people on the value that you're trying to offer. And when you're pitching departments, it's really easy for you to say like, we did XYZ thing. We retained like 10% of women in computer science and first year programs, or we help students land internships at these companies, or whatever it might be. And it also helps you build the continuity, right? So it like inspires you to do better the next year because you know what you're capable of. So setting them in a non-competitive environment, I operate kind of in a non-competitive environment because like we don't really compete with other student organizations, and so we use the OKR method and it works pretty well for us. How we end up doing this is it's an iterative process. We will review the objectives and the key results at the end of every semester. And one of our semester 2 objectives is actually to assess our semester 1 objectives and see where we've measured up to them. The biggest part with metric setting is to remember that your team also has to buy into the metrics, and they have to know that this is what we're going to be measuring because they are the ones that are going to be executing on the vision and making the thing happen. Another thing I would say is to pick the value-driven projects, especially in like the virtual world. You know that people are going to be zoomed out fairly quickly, going for quality over quantity, and then setting metrics. When it comes to actually putting numbers on things, some things are a little bit hard because they're more qualitative, but example metrics that we set, there's some of the more obvious ones that are like social media engagement, which you can track pretty easily, the number of people that show up to events. But then also another way to do it is when people do come to your events, say you did a recruitment event, measuring whether or not people actually followed up with a recruiter after that conversation, asking them like, how many applications did you end up sending based on that event that we just had? How many new connections did you make? How many conversations did you have? And then that's another way for you to measure whether or not you're actually getting quality results out of the events that you're putting forward, and you're better able to assess what's successful and what's not successful. And then the last piece to metric setting is to understand what people are looking for. So I know this is a little bit harder to do when you're in the first year of launching an organization, but once you have a couple of events under your belt, looking at what exactly people are wanting to see. What is it? Internship opportunities? Is it side projects? Is it panels or discussions on certain topics? And when you get that feedback from people, implementing that into the actual vision and the projects that you put forward is another way for you to set success metrics, because you're able to see this is what people wanted to see. This is what we did with that feedback. And then you get feedback on those things and you continue to iterate throughout the process. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if you have follow-ups. You're welcome. Okay, Number 5. Number 5 was building a team bond virtually. So how might you create bonds between you and your exec to build authentic relationships? Okay, this one. So this one wasn't as much of a struggle when we were in person, and I didn't realize how easy it was when we were in person to build bonds with people, just because like you're in a meeting, people are having side of desk conversations and everything kind of just falls into place. But I hear you when the virtual world, it's a lot more challenging. There's a couple of things that we've done that I found are working pretty well. And it's interesting to see because we started off, like our exec team has grown and across 17 people, it's really hard to make sure that everyone is connected with everyone else. So a lot of my efforts have been focused on trying to get people connected with a couple other people on the team that I feel like they might resonate well with, that are outside of the group that they usually work with. And then when we are able to meet in person, we can do more like whole team bonding type things. So a couple of things that we do. The first one, and this one was one that we recently implemented, was doing team lunch. So every week I will have lunch with 3 people on our team and we'll sit down for a 30-minute lunch, just because like obviously we all have to eat at some point anyway, so might as well have a conversation while we're at it. It's just been a really nice way, especially through online school, to connect with people. And it's also an interesting way for me to see whether or not I know my team well. I try to match people based on who I think they might mesh well with and who they also don't get a chance to work with on a daily basis. And we'll sit down and we'll have lunch and we'll just talk. And it's a good way to build those side of desk kind of relationships that we would have if we were in person. Another thing that we did was this accountability buddy thing. So basically, a lot of us have our own personal goals that we're working towards, whether that be like building out our professional portfolios or staying fit or eating healthy or whatever it might be. And because we're all working on this on our own, and like we all know that we're doing it, but it's hard to kind of have that someone to like check in with and be your accountability person. What we did was just we paired up people on the team who wanted to participate, and we're like, okay, this is going to be your like accountability buddy for the term, and you guys can share what your goals are, check in with each other, and that's another way to build that relationship between people. Also, this comes back to the idea of authentic leadership. Sometimes I'll just drop like how are you feeling? Give this like a thumbs up if your day's been going well, a sad face if there's something that's going on that you want to talk about. And I'll just throw that in our team's channel and people will just engage with that so that they know someone is still listening. The other piece is make sure you do have team socials. One thing that we actually did at our last meeting was, I don't know if you have used Glimpse. I know it's being used at the hackathon for networking, but we just had a Glimpse session between our team a few days ago. And that was just a way, it was at the end of the meeting, the last 20 minutes, instead of doing like admin stuff, we just hopped into a Glimpse room and everyone was able to just de-stress. What else? We always start our meetings with a question of the day, and it's usually something funky and not like, how has your day been? But how are you showing up to this meeting today as an animal or something crazy like that? What's the weirdest thing you've seen happen on a Zoom call? Just random things that get people to share a little bit of a tidbit about their day or their life that you might not usually have. Yeah. And then the last piece I'm going to say is this one's important. Don't assume thanks are understood. A lot of the times your team, like you have a lot of people working on a lot of different things, and like people want to feel acknowledged and that you are grateful for the work that they're putting in. So every little while, like I'll just shout out a team that's been doing really great work, or if a person put together a really great proposal or something, I'll just drop it in our channel, right? And I'll tag them, and everyone's there to just kind of hype that person up and also celebrate each other's wins. And that's another way to kind of create that sense of community amongst your team. I hope that helps. All right, and then the last one, Kenny asked to follow up on criticism. How do you balance between giving too much criticism, giving too little, and giving just the right amount and the right criticism? Okay, so I don't have a solid answer for this one. I'll tell you what I do. I always make sure to, when I am giving criticism, do it in like, this is a good thing and a good thing, and then I'll sandwich the criticism between the two good things. So I'll say like, okay, this event went really well. We had really great engagement on XYZ thing. one thing that I feel like we could fix is maybe at our next event, we don't host it on, like, we don't do an Instagram live and instead we do a Zoom or something like that. But I do feel like the Instagram live platform was really great at getting people to engage on a more informal level. Is there another way that we can take that and apply it to a different type of event that might have different goals, but that would better fit what we're trying to accomplish? And so doing that kind of structure of like good and then a criticism and then something good has helped me get better at giving criticism and not feeling bad about it. Um, in terms of how much to give is literally applicable to everything. Exactly. It's great and it makes people not hate you. That is 100% true. Yeah, you're so right on that, Jennifer. The one thing I'm gonna say about like giving too much, too little, I mean, for me personally, if I feel like there is a problem and I think that it's going to be a problem that's going to last, or it might like trickle down into certain areas, or it's like a recurring problem that I can foresee happening again, like it's something I'm going to want to address. And I don't want to hesitate when I give that criticism because I know it's something that has to get fixed. Like at the end of the day, we're all buying into the same vision. We are all trying to make this the best thing possible. So as a leader, you can't be afraid of giving criticism as long as you do it in a way where you are still celebrating your team, where you yourself also take criticism from people and you show them that you are implementing that criticism and doing something about it. And then I feel like this is something just as you do more of it. I know this is a really bad answer. I feel bad giving it too. It's just as you do more of it, like you develop a little bit of that intuition. But what I am going to say is like, if you see a problem, like address it. Don't just put it to the side because you're worried that your team is going to hate you if you bring it up, right? Another thing someone has said to me before is like, let your team fail, but privately, not publicly. And what they meant by that was, yes, there's going to be roadblocks, and it's better that you hit those roadblocks amongst your team and you break them down like as a team within your small safe space rather than like when you're hosting an event for 100 people and like something completely falls apart. So just remembering that mentality as well, is like at the end of the day, this is for the betterment of the organization, for your team's personal growth, and acknowledging that makes it a little bit easier to get into the habit of noticing things, giving the criticism, and also making sure that you are following up and offering that support in order to address whatever problem you're hoping to address as well. I hope that that answers the question, Kenny. Yeah, no worries. All right, so that, thank you, Jennifer. That is everything that I had. I am going to say if anyone has follow-up questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Discord and ask away. I'm totally happy. This is something I love talking about, as you can tell. But that is all I had for this session. Jennifer, is there anything else that you wanted to address?
Nope. If you're all set, then we're all set. Can we get a round of applause? A virtual round of applause, please, for the amazing session.
Thank you.
Oh, Kenny, do you have a question since you raised your hand, or?
Sorry, I was trying to do a round of applause, but there's
no worries. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Have a great rest of the hackathon, everybody. Take care.
All right. Bye, everyone. We'll see you at the next event, hopefully.